Welcome to a new edition of See What's On, Central Maine's radio arts magazine, brought to you by Community Productions and Mix 107.9. It's Sunday, November 20th, 2016. I'm your host, Dick Dyer. Each week we scour the region and highlight the new and the unique arts happenings wherever they might occur. From Bangor to Lewiston, from Farmington to Rockland, from lounges to formal theaters, from galleries, festivals, libraries, movie houses, and maybe even your own home. If it's on, it's on. See what's on. This week we take a trip to Belfast through the eyes of the Maine Farmland Trust Gallery Curator, Anna Whithold Aboldo, to discuss what her organization is doing to help farming activity in Maine. And we travel across the Big Pond to listen to some great music from the Outside Track, a group whose members hail from Scotland, Ireland, and a bit closer to home in Nova Scotia. This segment of See What's On is brought to you by SBS Carbon Copy, located on Main Street in Waterville. SBS is a family-owned business and has always been a strong supporter of the arts and community development. Visit them at mainprintingservices.com. So, Anna, welcome to our studios today and See What's On.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to have you, and it's a bit of a departure for our listenership to be talking about arts vis-a-vis farming and the importance of farming, even though we all know how important farming is to Maine people in general. So I wanted to start by talking a little bit about your umbrella organization, the Maine Farmland Trust.
Yes.
And get into, a little bit about what the mission is of Maine Farmland Trust.
Yeah. Well, Maine Farmland Trust, in a few words, exists to support farmers. Maine Farmland Trust's mission is to preserve farmland, to support farmers and advance the future of farming. And this organization started in 1999. It started very small, a few people gathering together to really make a serious effort to preserve farmland. There were a lot of conservation organizations in Maine that were focused on conserving wildlands, but they felt it was really important to conserve farmland and do that with an agricultural easement to make it available for future farming in Maine. And as we grew, we moved to Belfast, and we're right on Main Street. We have a gallery space in the front, and when we started our offices, the person who was heading the organization at that time, John Piatti, thought it would be a great use of that front space because we didn't need to have staff sit there yet. We were still very small. Mm-hmm. He thought it would be a great use of that space to have some images relating to farming, and that's how the idea of the gallery started. And then I came on board in 2009 to really breathe some life into that idea and make it an actual gallery.
So it's still a relatively new organization in the scope of organizations.
Yes, that's correct.
And I know on your website there's a very telling statistic about why this is important.
Yes, that's true. What became clear as the organization in its infancy looked at the age of farmers in Maine was that in this decade there will be 400,000 acres of farmland in transition as farmers get to be of an age that they want to stop farming, or they might want to sell their farm, or they would hope for a successor to take over the farm. And so it seemed, knowing that that land would be in transition and that if a farmer is under pressure to secure their finances for the later part of their life, that it could very well happen that that land would go to developers and house lots would be built. That seemed to be, a real threat to our farmland. And Maine is a very rural state, but there is not a ton of land that has great farmland soils. So it really truly is important to preserve the farmland that we have. So that's where our concern started, and that's, all the other efforts flowed from there.
And that's an interesting concept because I think a lot of Mainers are very familiar with the working forests. Thankfully, we still have a very large working forest, although even that has changed with, what preserved the working forest in Maine for years was the fact that a few major landowners held that land and used it as wood supply for the various mills that we're all used to. But for obvious reasons, and everybody knows that history now, that's all changing. And a lot of that large-scale holding has consolidated and or been sold off and the threat. So the agriculture communities got the same kind of pressures is what you're saying.
Well, and the other piece is, there's not a lot of farming families where there's somebody ready to step into the footsteps of the older farmer who might be looking at retiring. Yet we are really lucky that in Maine there are a lot of young people that want to farm. And so as our organization grew, we started just with protecting the farmland. We began to see all these other needs. We also need to help young farmers get onto the land. And how do they how do they either lease land or purchase land, and how can we help, with making that land available to new farmers.
So if somebody has an interest in getting in farming in any level, it sounds like you're an organization that they should talk to.
Absolutely. And there's some other wonderful organizations in our state too, like MAFCA. I think Maine is strong because there are a number of organizations that have really taken this to heart and are providing avenues for people to get more experience in farming, to get access to land, all these things that are important to secure the future of farming in Maine.
And can you share, are the numbers changing? I mean, we talked about the potential of 400,000 acres leaving.
Yes.
Are the numbers turning?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I can just speak about the numbers at Maine Farmland Trust, but we're very excited that to date we've preserved over 50,000 acres of farmland, or the equivalent of 581 farms. So these farmlands have been protected for future food production, which is not only great for farming and the environment, but also for the local economy, because sometimes farming is one of the few options in very remote areas in Maine for people to make a living.
And this is not all Waldo County then?
No, we're talking statewide. Yeah,
Statewide.
Maine Farmland Trust is a statewide organization. There's probably close to 100 local land trusts in Maine, and we often work with other land trusts too.
So these land trusts often can become farms or have a farming component as well.
What you see sometimes is if there is a local land trust where there is a farm that the owner is looking to preserve, and they've approached the local land trusts. Often these small trusts don't have the legal expertise to write an agricultural easement. So Maine Farmland Trust will be available to help with that piece of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know John was very active in the legislature. That's when I first met him.
You're referring to our former
The
president.
executive-
John Piatti. Yes,
John
exactly.
Piatti. So hence a lot of legislation has been put in place to help with this effort as well.
Yeah, we do have our finger on the pulse of
Good.
policy because we feel like that's very important.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Excellent. And of course, all of this takes money and a good deal of public involvement. So one of the things I want to make sure to get into this segment of our interview is how people could get involved with Maine Farmland Trust.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, we absolutely love it when people want to become members of our organization. We're a member-driven organization, and we went from about 400 members in 2005 to well over 6,000 members currently.
6,000.
Yes.
Incredible.
Yeah.
In a very short period of time.
Yeah.
To be a member, what's entailed?
There are different levels of membership. You can become a member for as little as $20 a year. And what that really means is that we have a connection with our base, that we can provide information and make sure that people are informed, that people, through that information, through knowing what's actually going on in farming in Maine, can be advocates for farmland protection and farming support.
Okay.
That's really the most important piece, because
And-
as soon as we have a good base of members, then we can show to bigger funders that we have that support in Maine, that this is important to people, and that leverages other funding, which is kind of what makes everything work.
And they in turn become advocates
Exactly.
for farming and
Exactly.
preserving farmland.
Yeah.
And I know on your website you have a conference that's coming right up in December in Augusta at the Civic Center,
Yeah.
Day-long conference on this topic. And so I would urge people to go to the website, mainefarmlandtrust.org,
Correct. Yeah.
and check out all the good things that are going on.
Yeah, and maybe I can say something about
Sure.
that, because there's so much going on. We have developed into so many different branches of programming at Maine Farmland Trust that when people go to the website, an easy place to start looking is what our mission is and news, because news will show you all the different things going on. And then when people look under programs, they can find different programs that might speak to them, and the gallery, which we will be talking about, is one of those as well.
Right. I was going to make sure to end this segment by talking about the gallery, because one of the neat ways, I think, being an arts magazine radio show, is that you're using art to further your mission and help with that mission. So, your topic areas for the trust get into farmland protection, farmland viability, public outreach, and why it all matters are the major topics that I found on your site. But let's talk a little bit about the gallery, and after our break, we'll come back and talk about what's currently going on in your gallery. But what is the gallery all about? You mentioned that it came to be because you had a great space in the building in Belfast, on Main Street in Belfast. Talk to me about that a little.
Yeah. So the idea was, when we were still really trying to get the word out about what was actually happening in Maine in the area of farming, the idea was that it would be good to show images so that people, when they came in, could actually get a sense of the new face of farming. We felt that there were a lot of ideas about farming being, a certain way kind of some romantic ideas about farming that might not be accurate anymore when there were a lot of new things happening. So that, is a way to show different imagery and educate the public is really where it began. But when I came on board, my background was also partially in the arts, and I had started galleries before and had a local network of artists. And so through bringing people in and encouraging them to show work that related to agriculture in some way, or to the environment in a broader way, or local foods, what we began to show started to broaden. Not only did it create an interesting conversation with people coming in, but what I also loved is how it involved the artists, because a lot of the artists that I would work with were really passionate about our mission. Mm-hmm. So we can talk more about that later. But
sure.
The function became more than just being a gallery. It really created another way to do outreach.
And a real strong one at that. Mm-hmm. And we should mention that on your website, there is a gallery store, and artwork and other products are available for sale, and proceeds from this online store, as well as artwork in the gallery exhibits. Some of it is also for sale at times.
Yes.
And that would all benefit this cause as well.
Exactly.
So, by all means, check out the online store. Again, MaineFarmlandTrust.org. So we're going to take a break. We're going to listen to some music, actually a great band from across the pond, a Celtic band, and with farming themes, actually, to their music. We'll take a listen for that and come back and talk about the current exhibit at the Maine Farmland Trust Gallery. I met up with members of this band, Outside Track, at the Maine International Conference on the Arts earlier this fall, and we'll look forward to them coming back to Maine in the future. Here is Trouble in the Fields.
Baby, I know that we've got trouble in the fields. When the bankers swarm like locusts out there, turning away our yield. The trains roll by our silos, silver in the rain. They leave our pockets full of nothing but our dreams and the golden grain. Have you seen the folks in line downtown at the station? They're all buying their ticket out and talking the Great Depression. Our parents had their hard times 50 years ago, when we stood out in these empty fields in dust as deep as snow. And all this trouble in our fields, if this rain can fall, these wounds can heal. They'll never take our native soil. But if we sell that new John Deere, we'll work these crops with sweat and tears. You'll be the mule, I'll be the plow. Come harvest time, we'll work it out. There's still a lot of love here in these troubled fields. There's a book upon the shelf about the Dust Bowl days, and there's a little bit of you and a little bit of me in the photos on every page. Now our children live in the city and they rest upon our shoulders. They never want the rain to fall or the weather to get colder. And all this trouble in our fields, if this rain can fall, these wounds can heal. They'll never take our native soil. But if we sell that new John Deere, we'll work these crops with sweat and tears. You'll be the mule, I'll be the plow. Come harvest time, we'll work it out. There's still a lot of love here in these troubled fields. There's still a lot of love here in these troubled fields. And all this trouble in our fields, if this rain can fall, these wounds can heal. They'll never take our native soil. But if we sell that new John Deere, we'll work these crops with sweat and tears. You'll be the mule, I'll be the plow. Come harvest time, we'll work it out. There's still a lot of love here in these troubled fields. You'll be the mule, I'll be the plow. Come harvest time, we'll work it out. There's still a lot of love here in these troubled fields.
That was Trouble in the Fields by The Outside Track. We'll take a break for some commercial messages. When we come back, we'll listen to more about the Maine Farmland Trust Gallery and listen to more music from The Outside Track. Welcome back. You're listening to See What's On Mix 107.9. You can hear recent shows that you may have missed on SeeWhat'sOn.com. That's the letter C, What's On, or on Facebook.com, Arts in Central Maine. Please take the time to send us your story ideas and calendar listings for upcoming arts events. So we're back with Anna Whithold Aboldo, who's the gallery curator at the Maine Farmland Trust Gallery in Belfast, Maine. And right there on, and I believe it's 97 Main Street, is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Oh, wow, good.
Yeah.
Good. We wanted to jump into, in this segment, a discussion about 2x2. And we're not talking dancing here.
No, we're not.
Although we could. My little do-si-do.
Yeah, that happens right around the corner.
Yeah, 2x2. Talk to me about 2x2, the current show.
Yeah, so 2x2 is a show including two couples, four photographers. And it just kind of happened that way when one of those couples approached me with work that they wanted to show at the gallery. Drew Sanborn and Margaret Lindsay Sanborn loves to go out to old farms, take their cameras, and just be curious about all the things they can find there. And they love taking pictures of old farm equipment and old barns and different artifacts that they might find on the farm. So a conversation started about what that exhibit could look like. Mm-hmm. And then I thought of two other photographers that I personally know, Catherine Oliver and Ralph Hassenflug. They live in Camden. And I thought it would be really fun, since our gallery has 2 floors, to have an exhibit where each couple has one floor to show their artwork, since all of these people are photographers. And it also made me curious how being creative and doing photography plays a role in their life together.
It struck me when I went to your site and read one of the press releases about this. And this is a point where I can say my wife and I are also in part photographers. And we often go out shooting the same thing, but end up with strikingly different images from the same subject. Yeah. You got into that with these couples as well. What did you find with them?
One of the stories that really sticks in my mind from talking with Margaret and Drew is that they do love going out together to the same mm-hmm. site. Ralph and Catherine don't always work that way. But when Margaret and Drew go out together, Drew said, in a very sweet way, he said, well, Margaret is much more daring and adventurous than I. So when we're at a particular site together, she'll be the one hanging onto a tree over a cliff, shooting down, and I'll be safely somewhere near the barn.
Very secure.
Yes, very secure. But they like how looking through the other person's eyes reveals things that they hadn't noticed themselves.
It's very telling. Did they share any of that with you, other than the daring nature of Margaret? Or
yes. Also, Margaret said that Drew will find things that she might not have considered as subjects for her photographs, that he will see things, a certain composition that she really learns from the way that he looks. And an interesting thing to share there, too, is that Margaret came to photography through Drew in a way. I mean, she also shared that she loved doing photography as a younger person, but she was always taking pictures of things in a way that her parents didn't relate to. They would say, you're taking the wrong kind of pictures, because she was already very abstract in her approach.
Okay.
And so when
And much more daring.
And much more daring, exactly. So when she and Drew got together, Drew encouraged her to get behind the camera. And so, that love of doing this together really started with their relationship.
It's interesting. With my wife and myself, I'm partially colorblind, so I've tended to shy away from anything in the arts that required a knowledge or being able to see color like everybody else does. So I tended to shy away from it, but by getting into macro zoom photography, really doing close-ups, I saw an intensity that I couldn't see with the naked eye. And that allowed me to play with color in ways that I never would have. But it also revealed some things about ourselves. I tend to shoot things with a great deal more tension in the framing and the structure, which tells a lot about me. I'm a little off-center. My wife's much better at framing things and being very staid in her approach to the artwork. But now, is it Catherine and Ralph? Catherine has got photographs, but hers has a twist. Is that correct?
Yeah, so at the gallery, there will be 2 different bodies of work by Catherine. So one body of work is photographs just like Ralph's, and she is focused on sort of what she calls the wild garden of childhood. I think her images are very provocative in an interesting way. They kind of make you look twice, like what's going on in these pictures. I see a child, I see nature, I see some animals. What's the story here? I think that both of them are very good at storytelling in their imagery, but they each have a very different feel. And then the other body of work that Catherine has done has photography as a base. There are images. They look like black and white images, but then she's worked over the images with encaustics and different pigments, which creates a very sort of ethereal, dreamy look to those images. And they're all hung together. Should imagine panels that are, I believe, 10 by 10 each. They're all hung together, and they look like different lines in a poem when you look at them.
And for those people who don't understand the encaustic process a little bit, can you explain a little bit more about that technique?
Yeah, so when people talk about encaustics in the arts, they refer to beeswax. And typically that's heated and then applied, and it creates a very interesting surface where you can also scratch into the surface and create layering, and you still see an image or colors underneath through the beeswax.
It's a very interesting process, and one very worth seeing. In your brochure and online, there was an image of Vera and the Primo's pigs. Is that one of Catherine's?
Yes, that's one of her photographs.
One of her photographs, not the encaustic. But and I see what you were talking about by looking at that image of Vera and the Primo's pigs. And it's not your typical photograph. I'll leave it at that. You'll have to go to the website, folks.
Well, or come to the gallery, even better, to see them in person. Yeah,
by all means.
Yeah,
and anything about this particular show? You have several shows a year. I share that, and we hope to have you come back again later next year to talk about another project you're very definitely involved with. We teased that up at the beginning of the show. In particular, the Joseph Fiore Art Center, but we're going to tease you with that and hope that you come back to the show and tell us more about that at some future date.
Sounds good.
Will you do that?
Yes,
great.
Very gladly so.
Great.
Yeah.
So by all means, folks, get out and check out 2x2, great exhibit, which runs November 7th. It's already open through January 6th. And check out the ongoing series beyond that. You'll have announcements coming up on future exhibits, I'm sure. Anna, we really want to thank you very much for coming in with us today, and look forward to following more on Maine Farmland Trust.
Wonderful.
And the gallery specifically.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Take care.
You too.
We'll close out our show today with a final farm-related tune from the Outside Track. Here is Do You Love an Apple?
Do you love an apple? Do you love a pear? Do you love a laddie with curly brown hair? And still I love him. I can't deny him, but I'll be with him wherever he goes. bugger all. But still I love him. I can't deny him, but I'll be with him wherever he goes. He stood at the corner, a fag in his mouth, 2 hands in his pockets. He whistled me out, but still I love him. I can't deny him, but I'll be with him wherever he goes. He works at the pier for 9 bob a week. On Saturday night he comes rolling home drunk, but still I love him. I can't deny him, but I'll be with him wherever he goes. Before I got married, I'd sport and I'd play, but now sure the cradle it gets in me way. But still I love him. I can't deny him, but I'll be with him wherever he goes. Do you love an apple? Do you love a pear? Do you love a lady with curly brown hair? And still I love him. I can't deny him, but I'll be with him wherever he goes.
Well, that's our show for this week. I really want to thank our guest, Anna Whithold of Aboldo. We hope you also enjoyed listening to the outside track. Thanks to them for their special fusion of music. I would also like to say a special thanks to Gatsby for technical assistance in producing this show here on 107.9 The Mix. My partner Gary Pullen and I hope you reach out to us on Facebook and visit our website at seewhatson.com. Remember, that's the letter C, whatson.com. And share that with your friends. We look forward to seeing you next Sunday for more features about the arts in Central Maine. That's it for me. Hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And remember, if it's on, see what's on.